Hello everyone, this is Scott Caruso from MPX1312 here with the Week 1 Heuristics review. Let's get right down to it because we got two games to talk about and less than 10 minutes to do it. The first one I'm going to discuss is a game called Lucky Bingo by a company called Lucky Labs. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a bingo game with a couple of different options. You can play a standard bingo game. You can do bingo with different power-ups. There's what they call painfully slow bingo, which you can do on a day-by-day basis, practically for a larger payout, that sort of thing. But at its core, it's a traditional bingo style of game, but it does come with its share of heuristics problems. As an example, the audio-visual representation of the game. Yes, the visual representation is sufficient. It's got a bit of a cartoony look to it. Kind of supports the fact that it's a fun, casual style of game. It's definitely the aesthetic that they're going for. The main problem I have is the music that's being used in the user interface. It's a very generic sounding loop. So this is the music that I insisted on having to turn off because it plays throughout the entire game and is it's a little grating in my humble opinion. So that's the biggest issue with the audio-visual representation in my mind. There are some key login issues, or not login, interface issues as well, in terms of screen layout being appealing. The login screen, that's where I was going with this, is very plain, provides very poor error messaging, and it's barely recognizable as part of the same UI as the rest of the game. So in my opinion, this screen should be completely redesigned in order to more closely match the aesthetic of the remainder of the application, and better error messaging to support login problems, even more aesthetically pleasing error messaging as well. It's just a kind of a tacked-on screen is what it looks like. It also mentioned on the game select screen, it's unclear that you can scroll up and down to look at the different card types. It's visually pleasing enough, but some kind of scroll bar or arrows would certainly help there. And just the main bingo screen itself is just really busy. There's just so many things to choose from, and so many different things to look at. Maybe making the user giving the user the ability to, excuse me, I got tangled up there for a second, to hide the previously called numbers UI, or combine some options together, like put the buy card tab right up in the bingo ball, or the bingo card area, something like that, just to clean up the screen a little bit, make it a little bit less busy. I think would make it a little more visually appealing and easier for users, especially new users, to navigate. In terms of the game and device UI being used, the game UI is nice enough in a number of the areas where it appears, but sometimes it slips into using device UI in places where you think that there would be game UI. Settings is a really good example of this, actually, where it kind of slips out of game UI into device UI in kind of a jarring way. It's not unfunctional. It's just it just appears weird, and utilizing the more custom UI will just better brand the experience towards Lucky Bingo, in my opinion. You don't have any problem with indicators. It's always clear that it's your turn to play a ball. The audiovisual clues are there to help you with that. And I would also include that control keys and feedback on your actions and game controls. All of these things are also as you would expect from a game like this, with no issues. Typical tap and swipe gestures are used. There's an auto dab option for those who don't want to tap cards themselves. And the user is always given feedback on his actions, whether it be through some visual cue or some audio cue, and there's really quick feedback as well, so no issues in that regard. There are issues, however, when it comes to terminology and navigation within the game. One key terminology issue that I have with the game is that the term buy, B-U-Y, is used in reference to what you do with a new bingo card. And in this game, you don't actually spend money to buy bingo cards. You spend the soft in-game currency to buy new bingo cards. What you buy is the soft currency to purchase, to acquire bingo cards. And I think that term buy can be a little misleading because it makes it seem like you're actually spending money when you're not spending money to get one of these cards. So I think using a term like get or spend coins instead of buy would make more sense. In terms of navigation, the critical path to get into the game is not obvious at all. There's a lot of different screens and pop-ups to navigate, and a number of different game types to navigate through. I don't think it's really obvious how to just get into a game of bingo and play. And I think that's a problem that really would need to be addressed. Finally, in terms of irreversible errors, again, it's when you're going to, quote, buy or acquire new cards. Coins can easily be debited from the user's account simply by tapping on the button, which is good in that you can buy new cards quickly. It's bad in that you couldn't buy new cards quickly without confirming this action you want to take. So there's the destructive action of losing the soft currency that you're not confirming or denying that you want to do. I think some kind of confirmation pop-up makes a whole lot of sense there in order to impact the game in a meaningful way. The overall score for Lucky Bingo was a 17. Which, in and of itself, it's just a number, right? What does 17 really mean? In terms of this, the 17 it's not great. There's 5 minors or majors that I think they need to address, and I think those are key to making Lucky Bingo a better user experience. There's a reason it's rated 3.2 in Google Play, and a lot of these things we just talked about are those reasons. Alright, now let's talk about Moto X Mayhem Lite for the iPad real quick. It's a simpler game than Lucky Bingo in that there's a lot less UI to navigate. It's really just a get in and play kind of motocross game where you speed up, slow down, lean forward, lean backwards, and try to navigate your way through a number of different maps. Real quick, I just want to run through the things that the game doesn't have much of an issue with, just to get those out of the way. The AV representation, I think, is actually excellent for a game of this type. The graphics and sound really match the intended aesthetic for the game. It looks very nice. It's got really good physics with the ragdoll physics, and the sound effects really add something to the experience as well. It's got a very unique, very distinguishable game UI. There's no question that you're playing the game when you're playing the game. There is always strong feedback on the actions you're taking. It's a really fast response time in a game like this. There needs to be no ambiguity to whether or not the things you're doing are impacting the game one way or the other. As much as I tried, I couldn't make any irreversible catastrophic errors while playing the game. All the errors came from my own failing at the game. There's nothing you really need to memorize, no complex concepts required. It's really get through the course as fast as you can, and don't wipe out while you're doing it. Alright, now, some of the things I think the game can improve upon. A lot of these are actually relatively minor as well. The options menu. It is not quite as visually appealing as the rest of the screens. It uses a thinner, less engaging font that just seems to break from the mold of the rest of the game. Using this more consistent font, making it look a little bit more like the other screens, can only help improve there. There's some terminology being used, like analog, digital, accelerometer, when describing control schemes, and I think could be really confusing to some users because there's not really a whole lot of context given. I would really recommend using more user-friendly terms or providing really robust descriptions of what each of these options means and how it impacts the game, because I think even a more advanced user, I don't necessarily understand what's trying to be conveyed there. I need to go out and find it for myself, and that's not a great user experience. Generally speaking, control keys are consistent. However, if you go to the stage select screen, it looks like you should be able to scroll left and right. There are some arrows there that you can tap to switch between maps, but it looks like you should be able to swipe. And I think advanced users will expect to be able to swipe there, and you can't. And I think I would recommend adding swipe controls to the stage select screen. The game controls are definitely convenient and flexible. However, when you start up the game, most times when you got an iPad in landscape mode, you've got the home button on the right-hand side of your screen, so you're holding it with the home button on your right. The game forces you to flip the iPad around to play it. It's an awkward user experience. I would strongly recommend that they improve and fix that going forward, just to make it better for the end user. And finally, there is help contained within the game, and it's a pretty effective how-to-play tutorial. However, the on-screen help that you get to tell you where to tap to go faster or slower or lean forward or back only appears the first time you play. Like literally the first run that you make. And I found myself not knowing exactly where I needed to tap on the screen during a number of my first few run-throughs, and I still struggle with it sometimes after playing the game for a number of hours. I would strongly recommend either keeping a HUD on the screen for a number of more matches, or at least giving the user the ability to turn that HUD on and off to make it easier on himself. The overall score for Moto X Mayhem Lite was a 10, significantly better than Lucky Bingo for many good reasons. A lot of the issues here are more cosmetic and minor in nature. I think the fact that the game is slightly higher rated bears that out. The gameplay itself has some issues, but this wasn't a gameplay analysis, this was a usability analysis. And from a usability standpoint, Moto X Mayhem Lite is a relatively usable experience with a few minor tweaks that can make it even better. That was week 1. Thank you all for paying attention, and I will talk to you again for week 2.